I joined Dimension Data in the year of 1999. And I know that's also still a long time ago. And Dimension Data was a listed company in South Africa on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And I was the first non-South African member of the executive team. And my colleagues at Dimension Data used to talk about me as a pommie, or as, I won't say all of the derogatory remarks that they used to refer to, but they used to engage with me quite differently because I wasn't schooled or educated in South Africa, and I was learning lots of new things. I learned lots of swear words in Afrikaans, and usually those were pointed at me in some shape or form. I knew when those were being used inappropriately, I must say. But I joined Dimension Data in a period of massive growth. Dimension Data had gone from the period of 1993 to 2000, from turning over $200 million in 1993 to turning over $2 billion in the year 2000. Massive growth. And we decided that we would move the primary listing of Dimension Data from Johannesburg to London, which was a major step. And at the time, the internet bubble, the millennium crossover, all of the IT-related challenges and changes were happening very, very rapidly. And when we moved the listing to London, we entered what's called the FTSE 100, which is the top 100 of listed companies that are there. And we entered at level 55 on the FTSE 100. And we knocked off the bottom because there can only be 100. So who became number 101 was Rolls-Royce. That was a major moment. I remember the night at Data in the bar when we celebrated the fact that we had a bigger market capitalization than British Airways. And they owned lots of planes and things, and we were just a technology services organization, and Rolls-Royce were off the FTSE 100. Well, I can tell you it was very short-lived, very short-lived, because within a year, the internet bubble had got to a point where it expanded massively, and Dimension Data's share price rose all the way to £10 on the London Stock Exchange. And when the bubble burst, it dropped from £10 to 11 pence. 11 pence. That's a 99% shareholder value destruction. In today's terms, that's more than Steinhoff, to put it into context. As a result of that, we wrote off of the balance sheet, $4.5 billion. That's just about as much as Cecil has spent over on the Lake Charles project, just to put that into context. It's a big number. When you multiply that by 15, it becomes a lot in rands. And I remember the first year that the 702 Walk the Talk, if anybody has done that, I decided to go and do the Walk the Talk. And I took my little dog with me to do it, and I didn't really think about it, but I wore a T-shirt that I'd worn many times, and on the back of the T-shirt, it had the big green triangle of Dimension Data. And as I was walking along in the crowd, I could hear people saying things, shouting and things, and I knew some of the South Afrikaans expletives that were being used. And I realized it was me that they were talking about because I had Dimension Data. And then somebody spat at me on the back of the legs, and they cursed, and they said how much money they had lost because of the crooks at Dimension Data that had destroyed so much value. And it really was a pivotal moment in life. And very quickly, Dimension Data moved into a diabolical situation in terms of the pressures that we faced. We were operating in countries around the world, 48 countries around the world, and our listing had crashed. We were in a diabolical situation. I was 32 years old when that happened. And one of the most interesting moments was seeing the group executive for sales and the group executive for marketing, who told me they were resigning, they were leaving. And at the age of 32, one has a little bit of gusto. What would you say? Chutzpah, or a little bit of gusto. And I decided to go and have a meeting with Jeremy Ord, who was the chairman and chief executive at Dimension Data. And I said to him, Jeremy, I'm here to offer myself to take over the roles of group executive of sales and marketing. I know that the two executives are leaving, and I would like to offer myself to take over the job. Well, what do you think he said to me at that point? It wasn't very flattering, I can tell you. It started with an F and finished with an O. And he told me to get the hell out of his office. So I did. I got up and I walked out, and there was the sales and marketing director. They knew that I was going in there, and they said to me, how did that go? I said, not exactly as I planned. And then 2 weeks later, I was surprised that I got a call from Jeremy's PA, who said, please, Jeremy wants to see you right away. So I walked into his office, and he was sitting in exactly the same position that I'd left him in behind his desk. And he didn't look very comfortable. And he raised his head up from his desk, and he looked at me, and he said, Adam, you've got the job. Now, F.O. out of my office right now. And I left, and I had the job at 32 years old, as group executive of sales and marketing of a $2.5 billion turnover company with operations in 48 countries around the world. And I realized it took me about a month to realize why I got the job. And there's a very good reason. Nobody else wanted the job. It was a diabolical time. I realized that the average tenure of a sales and marketing director in the technology industry at that point in time was a maximum of 6 months, because it was really tough in the market. And cutting a long story short, I held the job for 6 years. And over those 6 years, we doubled the revenue line from $2 billion to $4 billion in a period that was really, really tough. But in order to do that, I was spending up to 200 days a year flying to 48 countries around the world to be with the teams, to engage with our partners. And bearing in mind, my kids were very young in their own early childhood development phase that my wife had to supplement. If I'm not there, then that was a pretty tough period. And what I realized after 6 years, and let me tell you, I loved my job. The experience of having a round-the-world ticket that I literally would take off from Johannesburg, fly to London, fly to San Francisco, fly across to Singapore, visit Hong Kong on the way, go through a whole series of cities and then back. And sometimes I would be away for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And indeed, at one stage, I moved to the UK. My family were here, and I used to spend 3 months of the year in the UK operating from there, flying, because it was quicker and easier to do that. My family would then come and see me and fly up to see me there. And I became a tax exile, because if you spend 182 days out of your country during a year, for 3 months of which have to be where you don't come back, you pay no taxes. That's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, I thought that was fantastic. It was really a super thing. My family didn't think very much of that. And indeed, I came home from a 3-week trip. I walked through the gate to my home. As I walked through, my dogs came running towards me, and they attacked me around my legs. And I thought, well, geez. And I walked into the house, and there was my wife and my 2 young kids, and my wife attacked me in the house, not with a knife or anything, but she laid into me to say, Adam, when you're away, we have a routine. When you come back, you're disrupting that. So either be part of our routine or have your own routine. And believe me, as I was traveling through airports around the world, I used to meet lots of marketing and sales directors from other companies, and every single one of them that I met was divorced. And I decided I can't do that any longer. So I left Dimension Data.